22 years teaching Navy JROTC.
My husband's in the Navy.
I wore a uniform.
I am not. This
straight
is
up
my
business
first
people.
time in uniform.
Is it?
It is. My daddy would have
I believe.
been Korea.
I believe.
He went in
called
then
soldiers,
World War II at 16.
I am not
He's
the
actually
person.
better age than Korea.
You want to ask Dad?
They got him out in 46. He went in 44 and came out in 46.
Well, yeah, he.
But he got these fingers cut off
That's the only thing that's mine.
and railroad.
Really?
Anything about it? Yeah.
Well, you stay down here long enough. You will.
Yeah, I'm sure.
These are
Do you
the
want to like the file
I think they're probably like this one.
They don't got.
And then your aunt was saying Emma.
They don't got live.
And Emma would be somewhere around there.
She's on the back side. There's a single.
place for her.
I won't ask why.
There you go.
These people have been wonderful. Oh, yeah.
You got the cutest little wife.
Enough for everybody. Good morning. I'm Randall Freeman. I'm the commander of the General Robert C. Newton Camp 197 Sons of Confederate Veterans here in Little Rock. And on behalf of our camp and everyone participating in this event, I welcome you to this Southern Cross of Honor dedication for George Knox Cracraft. Today, after we receive greetings from Oakland Cemetery and the various heritage organizations present, we will hear the story of Captain Cracraft through his grandson, Scotty, who came all the way from Michigan and is a member of the Little Rock camp. It's such an honor to have him and the Cracraft family here today, and we're going to open this up now with prayer from Camp Chaplain Nathan Kimes.
Please uncover. Pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time you've given us to be here together in fellowship and in service to our ancestors. We ask that you bless our efforts, give us success in all we do, protect us and guide us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thanks, Nathan. Before introductions, I want to tell you a little bit about the cemetery that you're standing in. You are in the largest municipal cemetery in the state of Arkansas. 160 acres of what was originally 6 separate cemeteries, consisting of 2 Jewish cemeteries, a fraternal cemetery, and 3 baby lands. Historic Oakland Cemetery was born out of the war between the states. The need to accommodate the Confederate dead during the war was great, with, quote, many soldiers dying daily in the emergency hospitals in Little Rock, end quote. In the 1-acre cemetery of this, back there, is a Confederate cemetery that contains, I lost my place. There's a 1913 UDC monument atop a mass of 900 Confederate soldiers who died in Little Rock hospitals in 1863. Within that 1-acre Confederate cemetery is also a number of burials from the Confederate residents and wives of the Arkansas Confederate home. There's a larger 11-acre cemetery that holds the graves of 1,797 Confederate soldiers who died during and after the war. When Little Rock fell in 1863, Union troops set up an encampment in the cemetery and began burying their own dead here. After the war, the U.S. government purchased land at Oakland and in 1868 officially established the Little Rock National Cemetery, which you can see right over there. In 1913, the 11-acre Confederate Cemetery merged with the Little Rock National Cemetery, and that also holds the remains of 640 Confederates interred that were moved from Mount Holly Cemetery. So there are over 3,400 Confederates buried within this area, including the 4th Governor of Arkansas and Brigadier General John Selden Roan, General Albert Rust, and the guy we're here to honor today, George Knox Cracraft, one of the immortal 600. At this time, I would like to ask John with Oakland Cemetery to come and bring greetings.
Thank you, Randall. My name is John Raines. I'm the sexton here at Oakland and Fraternal Historic Cemetery Park. I am very glad to see everyone show up for this, and I appreciate all the hard work that Randall and everyone else has done to bring this all together. And hope you all enjoy the event.
Thanks, John. John cleaned the stones and helped fix this side up really nice. So he's done so much. And I'm trying to get him in the Little Rock camp. We just got to find him an ancestor. He's from Arkansas, so I know he's got one. At this time, we're going to bring greetings from other heritage organizations. We're going to start with the SCV and with our division commander, Trip Wilson.
Thank you. Is it on? He said Robert Edwards, past commander, is my first cousin, so people get us mixed up sometimes. I'm much better looking. I look like this guy out front.
He does.
On behalf of the Arkansas Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans, I bring greetings. Thank you very much for coming today. This is what our organization was meant for. This is what we're all about. We're not politicians. And they're trying to turn us into politicians because of everything that they're trying to do to our ancestors. And we'll continue the fight. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Thank you very much for being here.
Other SCV camps present, if you would come bring greetings. Steve, get up here. Any SCV camp, come bring greetings.
Greetings from Colonel Alan R. Witt, Camp 615, Conway, Arkansas.
Greetings from the reenactors. We have a number of camps over there. I'm the commander of the Bonnie Blue, Camp 2070 in Mountain View. Thank you.
Greetings from the Richard M. Gano Camp out of Fort Smith, Arkansas. I'm Commander Bob Hiddenbaker out of Boone, Arkansas. We're bringing greetings today.
My name's Steve Fazell. I'm the commander of the South Arkansas Infantry Camp 652, Shaw City. Welcome to
I think y'all are having trouble hearing. You have to hold the mic really close to your mouth. All right, now we're going to do the UDC. Is Patricia here? And all UDC representatives, please go ahead and come up here.
On behalf of the Arkansas Division, Daughters of the Confederacy, I bring you greetings. And it's events such as these that we can preserve our history for future generations. And it's an honor to be here today.
My name is Barbara Saffer, and I'm the president of the Verena Jefferson Davis 252 from Fort Smith, and it's an honor to participate in this ceremony today.
Any more Arkansas?
I'm Bobby Barnett, representing the Dixie Daughters, Chapter 2716 out of Lake City, Arkansas. I thank this family for honoring their loved one, and Randall and all these people that have participated, the family that's in presence, and our ladies, and especially our gentlemen soldiers and artillery, if there are any artillery here. I appreciate each one for making the effort to come out and spend this day trying to preserve to our best ability our true Christian Southern heritage.
I'm Diane Boner, and I'm representing the T.J. Churchill 1373 here in Little Rock. Also, the Order of the Confederate Rose and the Order of the Black Rose from Mississippi, and my ladies in black from the great state of Arkansas. Behind me here are a few of the girls. We thank you so much for coming out, and the good Lord has given us sunshine. We're going to have storms this afternoon, so thank you so much for coming.
Now we're going to go out of the state. Come on, ladies. This is my friend Lonnie from Mississippi.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Lonnie Wrinkle. I am the president of Bedford Forest 448 out of Hernando, Mississippi. And on behalf of my daughters, I bring you greetings. This is a particularly special ceremony for me. I have an uncle that was one of the Immortal 600. His name was John Anderson Burnett. He was with the 50th Virginia under Stonewall, so I'm tickled to be here. I thank everybody for coming out, and God is being good to us, and I'm grateful. I thank y'all for the opportunity to come, and I thank Randall for everything he does. He's one of the hardest working sons I know. Thank you.
I'm Dory Doris, GASO Chapter 2423, Memphis, Tennessee. I'm humbled to return to my hometown to honor Captain Cracraft. I'd like to read an excerpt from the letters of Major Jonathan Wilson Calloway, 2nd Arkansas Mounted Rifles, who also happens to be buried here in Oakland Fraternal Cemetery. It is often said of General Grant that he conquered the rebellion. It is evident that the surrender of General Lee marked the close of the armed conflict. The Confederates did not feel that they were traitors. The terms of surrender dictated by General Grant did not suggest treason. The situation was seen on both sides. Superior numbers and equipment were greatly against the Confederates. They ceased firing, yet feeling that they had acted throughout in accordance with the best promptings of their nature's nuance. They were able, after laying down their arms, to look mankind in the eye without blanching. This General Grant saw and appreciated, as did for the most part the soldiers under him. I'd like to thank Captain Cracraft for serving your country so honorably.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Is there anyone from the Civil War Roundtable who would like to bring greetings? I think there are a couple of representatives here and they're just shy. All right, the next thing on our agenda is really we're going to get right to the meat of this, and that is to hear the story of Captain George Knox Cracraft from his grandson. There aren't many of those left, and it's a great, great honor to have him here today to speak about his ancestor. Please welcome Scotty Cracraft from Michigan.
Thank you so much. I'm an old college professor, so I've got to have a notes to go on. So bear with me. I want to thank you for the kind introduction, Randall, and for inviting me here to pay honor to my grandfather, Captain George Knox Cracraft, and meeting members of my group. I've been a member here for several years, but it is far too little, or a little too far to come from Michigan for meetings. About 10 years, maybe longer than that. When you get my age, time passes pretty fast. My brother and I talked about rejoining the Sons of the Confederacy, and he did, and he was also a George Knox Cracraft, and 4 of his daughters are here today, and they are great-grandchildren of the captain. And my beautiful wife from Michigan is here also. I also want to pay homage to 599 other heroes of our noble cause. They are known along with my grandfather as the Immortal 600. We will talk about them later, but first let us talk about the subject of this medal. George Knox Cracraft was born in 1838 in Claysville, Pennsylvania, on the West Virginia border, except it was Virginia then. His father was George A. Cracraft, and his mother was Jane Knox Cracraft. He was the oldest of 9 children. His father was a doctor, and when George was a small boy, they moved to Wheeling, what's now West Virginia, where his father practiced medicine, owned a store, and later became a brigade major, brigade sergeant, which was equivalent to a major in the Confederate Army. George attended what is now Washington and Jefferson College, a Presbyterian school, and he also had a typical classical education. That is Latin, Greek, French, German. Then he learned Spanish and Italian on his own. Philosophy, religion, and whatever else they can think of to give him. He graduated the youngest in his class in 1857 at 19. Now, how he'd heard of Tuscumbia, Alabama, I do not know. But the South was booming then. He taught school there in the morning and in the early afternoons and early evenings. He studied law under a retired judge. When he knew enough law, he moved to Lake Village, Arkansas, and went into partnership before and after the war with Major James Robinson, grandfather of Arkansas Supreme Court Justice Sam Robinson, who many of you probably remember there. He was there for about a year when the drums of war started beating, and he returned to Virginia and enlisted in the Richmond Howitzers and was in some of the early battles and was in the Peninsula campaign, where he was captured and wounded and later exchanged. Thank you. Okay. He was in Corinth and other battles. I'm sorry, I've got ahead of myself. Anyway, he found out while he was there and had been there that there was a vacancy of the captain in the Chico Guards in Chico County, Arkansas. So he came back where he was elected captain. He was at Corinth and other battles when his regiment was transferred to Fort Hudson, which was south of Vicksburg. It was the last of the Mississippi campaigns, the Mississippi River campaigns, and held out for 2 weeks longer than Vicksburg. Excuse me. The enlisted men could be paroled, but the officers were sent off to prison to Johnson Island and other prisons. It was there he was selected to go to Fort Pulaski, Hilton Island, and/or Morris Island under the fire of his own troops. Of the 23 officers in Arkansas selected, 13 had been captured at Fort Hudson. Johnson Island was no country club, but grandfather was sent to hell on earth. General Lee and Preston Davis wanted to continue to exchange prisoners. Lincoln and Grant cut it out. They felt it would be better to feed them than to fight them. Further, the Yankees mostly went home after being exchanged, while the Confederate soldier went right back to the firing line. Punishment and hard work and hard time was caused by Secretary of War Stanton, who hated the South and wanted them to pay, and pay dearly. He chose a fellow sadist named General J.C. Foster. Foster was a West Point graduate who had been in the Corps of Engineers. I read through the life of his, a biography, and it doesn't mention him being there, except in most of the places it was. The first warden, Colonel Hollowell, was also a sadist. His welcome was, "Gentlemen, we will have some barrels placed on your enclosure in which you can throw your bones. Of course, I meant your meat bones." Nice humor for human soldiers. Lieutenant Peake from Arkansas died from neglect because the doctor would give you an opium pill or a dose of Jamaica ginger, but would not come out to see you. Note of the 645 died of dysentery and the other illnesses. Now let's take a look at their nourishment. For breakfast, they were given 4 moldy Army crackers, 1 ounce of fat meat. For lunch, 1/2 pint of bean or rice soup, and for dinner, all the wind you could inhale. Of course, if you could catch a dog, a cat, or a rat, you could die like a king. The water on Morris Island was from digging holes in the sand and waiting for the water to come up. The water was better at Hilton Head, but the food was the same. The commandants got better, but they had to obey General Foster and Secretary of War Stanton. General Foster was never mentioned as being there. At that time, let's go back to the subject of this award. George Cracraft held out to the last. He would not swallow the yellow dog until all of the Southern armies had surrendered. He was patrolled on June the 10th, 1865. He first went to see his family, who had been exiled for Southern sympathies when the Yankees invaded West Virginia and seceded from Virginia. His assets had been confiscated and didn't know if he got anything back after the war. His whole family came back, including 2 brothers who also served in the Confederate Army. He saw that there was nothing for him to do there, and he was not particularly friendly with his grandparents who had cut him out of any will, so he returned to Lake Village and his practice of law with Major Robinson. When he got back, he found that another target had invaded his beloved South, Reconstruction. Later, and shortly before his death, he made a speech, and I'm going to have to get my glasses out, for the UBC in Lake Village on Jefferson Davis's 100th birthday, in which I would like to read to you what he said. It is not my purpose to rekindle the fire that lit up our Southland from 61 to 65, nor will I attempt to a recital of the woes outnumbered in the days of war. Then he mentioned Reconstruction. These were worse than wars. In wars, lives are lost. The latter period were days of tyranny and oppression, the days of mortification and humiliation arising out of the results of conquest and power. It was a time that might determine right. When we were told that there was one thing left for us to do, and that was to be hanged. He and Judge Major Robinson all joined what was called the period Underground Army. I'm sorry, I've got the wrong page here. Maybe he would, I also found out from talking to a man down there that maybe he could have some luck with the Yankees because he was educated in Pennsylvania, and apparently he did get something. As a former company grade officer, the men looked up to him. But for 10 years, the Northern troops enforced the law for the carpetbaggers, and worse than the carpetbaggers, the scalawags, the Southerners who took their side. When the troops left in 1876, it still took several years to get the bad guys out and the good guys in. Grandfather was a good lawyer, and he took much of his land, much of his fees in land, and built a large plantation there. Sometimes the Southerners had to take non-pleasure action. He was in there. Usually he would have a kind word to say to them that maybe they'd be happier back in Wisconsin. But if that failed, then our Southern friends had other ideas in mind. The former company grade officer were not suspected of watching closely, had to furnish the leadership. My grandfather was one of these, but for 10 years the federal troops enforced the law of the carpetbaggers and scalawags. And when the troops were taken out in 1876, it still took time to get the bad guys out of Chico County. Many had moved away, sold their land cheap, and he took advantage of it and there. However, until he was 50, he was single. But at that time, life changed, and he met a very beautiful woman who was 30 years his junior. And she is buried here next to him in the cemetery. Her father had been a doctor and a former Confederate surgeon, died of the yellow fever and left the family penniless. When he married Kate Sigmund, He also sent his two brother-in-laws to medical school. He was a wonderful father. He was also interested in education. He wanted his children to get some of their education in the North so they would not be narrow-minded or provincial. But never forget you're Southern, is what he told them. Emma went to Vassar and Dad went to Harvard Law School and both finished high school in Indiana. He also wanted Dad to study abroad in Heidelberg. Unfortunately, World War I started before he could do that. He also brought in, he had some good rules there. I need to get this. I've been an accountant for a long time. Before I went into teaching, I was an auditor and always looked for internal control. He had several rules that I thought were just common sense, which is everything else. He said his overseers could not have a mistress or a fancy riding horse because they could not afford it with what he paid them. After they were married, he called his brother-in-laws in and asked them what they wanted to do, and they said be doctors, and he sent them to medical school. He brought in the first Chico County, the first Italians as tenants. He liked them and they liked him. During the first year, he employed an interpreter. At the end of that year, he fired the interpreter because he spoke and read Italian better than the interpreter. He was a vestryman and senior warden at the Episcopal Church in Lake Village. When he moved to the country, he brought in an Episcopal minister for services in a chapel he had built, and the rest of the time they used it for a Methodist minister. My son now has his Episcopal prayer book carried by him throughout the war. Also, when he was a POW, one of the men in his barracks had a New Testament Bible in Greek, and he translated it for them. My grandfather, George Knox Cracraft, was a Southern gentleman in every possible way. His word was his bond. He was friendly to all. Above all, he was a Christian, and in every way I am proud to be his grandson. I am proud to be a member of the SCV, and thank you, Randall, and all of you for making it possible and for to find out more about my grandfather and to let the rest of the people know about it. May we never forget who they were and who we are. Thank you from all my family, and God bless all of you.
Thank you so much, Scotty. All right, now we're actually going to do the dedication of the cross. Today you are a part of history as we dedicate this Southern Cross of Honor. How many historical markers have you seen in your lifetime, whether they be monuments, stones, or crosses? You will be able to say you were here the day this Southern Cross of Honor was unveiled. Time stands still for us as we go back over 150 years to honor Captain George Knox Cracraft, 23rd Arkansas Infantry, Company G. We take justifiable pride in our Confederate forebearers, men and women, who sacrificed their all for the cause in which they believed. The Confederate soldier won the admiration of the world with his courageous fight against an enemy overwhelming in numbers, equipment, and implements of war. With few exceptions, they were volunteers who fought for the principles of government in which they believed against a merciless invading foe. Although defeated, they left us traditions of honor, chivalry, faith in God, and respect for womanhood. They left us a passionate belief in freedom of the individual. Our Confederate ancestors bequeathed to us a military tradition of valor, patriotism, devotion to duty, and a spirit of self-sacrifice. When our nation no longer admires and pays tribute to these traditions, we will no longer remain a free nation. At this time, we will call the muster roll one more time. Captain George Knox Cracraft, 23rd Arkansas Infantry, Company G. Captain George Knox Cracraft, 23rd Arkansas Infantry, Company G. Captain George Knox Cracraft, 23rd Arkansas Infantry, Company G. In vain we call, but he has passed over the river and rests under the shade of the trees with Jackson and Lee, where they wait for you and me. My friends, a noble soldier has fallen, pierced by the arrow of death. His trials have ended, his faults are forgotten, his virtues are cherished. May he rest in peace. By the authority vested in me as commander of the General Robert C. Newton Camp 197, Sons of Confederate Veterans, Arkansas Division, Little Rock, I have directed that a historical marker be placed here at historic Oakland Cemetery. And today, April 6, 2019, we hereby dedicate this marker to honor our hero, Captain George Knox Cracraft, as an enduring record of his sacrifice, and so that his life and contributions to Arkansas and the South may be remembered and preserved in the annals of our Southern history. At this time, we will unveil the Southern Cross and also a surprise. So, John, and one of the Cracraft family, you pick. Whoops, the wind already uncovered the cross. There is one more thing back there that we're going to show you, though, that's a surprise. So y'all go ahead and pull that veil off. Y'all will definitely have time to come up and see this stone dedicated to Captain Cracraft, but today we have followed General Stephen D. Lee's charge to its fullest to preserve our Confederate soldiers' good name and the true history of the South. May God save the South, and God bless the memories of our Confederate ancestors forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Now we're going to do our artillery, pistol, and musket salutes. Wait, hold on. The ladies are going to lay their flowers. I'm sorry. Carol, if you would step up here. Anyone who would like to lay a rose at Captain Cracraft's grave, come get one from Carol right now, please. All ladies, men, anyone who wants to pay tribute to him today, come lay a flower.
Honor.
Pistols. Aim. Fire. Ready. Aim. Fire. Reset. Hold.
That was pretty awesome. I bet you $100 somebody in that Kroger back there dropped their frozen chicken. Thank you guys, that was great. Right now we're going to have a few words from our division commander, Trip Edwards. Trip, I know him so well, but I've got Robert Edwards on my brain today. Trip Wilson from Mountain Home, Arkansas.
Thank you. If you're keeping track, 1519, the 27th Arkansas Infantry Camp, past commander and founder. You want to know who all's here from other camps or writing it down or something. You know, whenever I joined the Sons of Confederate Veterans 20 years ago, what we were doing back then was cleaning graveyards, installing headstones, Confederate headstones and crosses of honor. And we loved doing that. The Saturdays were spent out in our coveralls and with a shovel in our hand, and it was a lot of fun. Well, in late 1990s, the NAACP signed a proclamation in their national convention to get rid of everything Confederate. And they've been trying to do that ever since. I know Antifa, the NAACP, George Soros, they have been on the Sons of Confederate Veterans and United Daughters Confederacy's coattails, fighting us hard that entire time. I was in South Carolina, and my first battle was the flag, Confederate flag that flew over the Capitol there. Then I had to fight Darlington. My camp was in Darlington, South Carolina. We had to fight the Darlington raceways and the all of the NASCAR people who would not allow Confederate flags on their racetracks anymore. Here in Arkansas, for the last 5 or 6 years, it seems like every year we have another battle of some kind. We lost Confederate Way. We lost Robert E. Lee's holiday. They're trying to take away that top star from us that represents Confederate States of America. This year we have won that battle twice. They keep rewriting the law. The last one that they rewrote, they decided not to bring up. And we're also fighting for our heritage preservation, not just for our Confederate veterans, but for all veterans of all wars since 1776. And I had somebody who fought in all of those wars. I was a Vietnam veteran myself, spent 24 years on active duty in the Navy. So we want to remember that. All of our grandparents, or most of us, have had grandparents whose grandparents were Confederate soldiers. All 4 of my grandparents were grandchildren of a Confederate soldier. I had 8 great-great-grandfathers who served. That just puts it a little bit into perspective. My grandparents were real grandchildren, my grandparents, and the last one of them died in 1984. It is a pleasure for me today to present to Scotty Edward Scott Cracraft from Northville, Michigan, a grandson of Confederate hero Captain George Knox Cracraft, Company G, 23rd Arkansas Infantry. No, it's not all. As a real grandson, you're one of the very few people in the world who qualify for this award. You, sir, are now recognized as a real grandson.
We have one more presentation we're going to do for Scotty. Hold on just a moment. Brandon? No, not yet. Brandon's ancestor was Colonel Sanford Faulkner, and he wrote the Arkansas Traveler. So I'm going to have him present something to Scotty right now.
Thank you all for being here today. As Randall said, I'm Dr. Brandon Faulkner, and my great-great-great-great-grandfather was Colonel Sanford Faulkner. He's well known to us all for having written the story and the song of the Arkansas Traveler, which became our state song, and baseball team, and all that good stuff. He was a colonel in the Confederate Army, first commanded the arsenal here at Little Rock, then was promoted to colonel of the Artillery Corps for the Trans-Mississippi Army Department under Edward Kirby Smith. There is a distinguished award that we hand out to those who have made excellent contributions to our state's history, and it is called the Arkansas Traveler Award, created by our government many decades ago. An honor from the colonel himself, and the contribution that your grandfather and you, Major Cracraft, have made to our state. My pleasure and honor to give to you the Arkansas Traveler Award. It's a big one, too. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll let you down here.
You go have a seat. That's actually the end of our program. I want to thank you all so much for coming out today. Would anyone like to say anything before we wrap this up? Of course, we're going to end it with singing Dixie. Anybody who has a problem with that, you can find the gate. Somebody with a good voice I want to hand this mic to, because I don't want to run everybody off. But we're going to close this out with singing Dixie. Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton, old time there, not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. In Dixieland, where I was born, only on a frosty morn. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Yes, I was in Dixie, hooray, hooray. In Dixieland, I'll take my stand to live and die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Anybody who didn't get to meet Captain Cracraft, or Scotty Cracraft, please come say hi to him and come look at the stone before y'all venture out.